Okay, our final presentation comes from Mark Shayler of APE. Mark wrapped up proceedings last year with a very honest, very funny presentation, so I hope I'm not setting the bar too high when I invite him back onto the stage and back by popular demand to disrupt us further. So please, Mark Shayler.
So it feels like this world is maturing and coming of age. So when I was first involved in rapid prototyping, rapid laser sintering, as we called it then, we just prototyped everything. But design skills got left behind. So rather than design twice, print once, it was nearly design once, print the shit out of it, and then maybe have another go if it wasn't quite right. And it feels like we've moved away from that, and that maturity brings with it a whole load of benefits, including environmental benefits. Now, I've got a real challenge, because I've spoken here 3 years on the row, and I've ran out of things to say. Genuinely, I'm shitting myself. So please forgive me if you've heard a bit of this message before. Now, I found out that Al Dean is an absolutely massive Lionel Richie fan. And so he's agreed to start us off with a little rendition of Hello. Where's Al? No fear. So hello, and thank you for having me back. I really appreciate it, and I really have a very big soft spot for Warwick University for reasons I'll talk to you about in a minute. And I told you last year a bit about me going on strike or taking the school out on strike when I was 10. I won't tell you that story again. I'll tell you this one instead. This was when I got thrown out of the Coventry Godiva Harriers annual under-12s disco for pogoing to God Save the Queen, about 3 fields away, just the other side of here. And I wasn't popular, but I thought I looked really cool. I didn't in the slightest. And I've had a whole load of kind of career highlights that involved me just narrowly avoiding being sacked, leaving before things got too bad. Or good. You know, some things like Asda trying to introduce solar panels on every store roof was seen as financially reckless. Absolutely the right thing to do for every other reason, of course, but financially reckless. Or trying to get deliveries by canal boat. Stupid things like selling local food. Just don't bloody do it, Shayler. It's not the future. Of course, all of those things happen now, okay? And all of those things are just down to timing. So sometimes being difficult or disruptive is the same thing, just separated by a number of years. At the moment, I run a company called APE, where I'm paid to be difficult. I get brought in to be the person to pick holes in something, or the person to think of new ideas that no one's thought of. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And as part of that, I run a project called Rebel Cell, where we set startups up inside larger organizations, because I'm struck by the fact that most of my big clients want to be really little, and most of my little clients want to be really big. It's a bit like that White Stripes song, When You're Sitting in a Little Room. If you haven't heard it, go and listen to it. It's genius. And that's exactly what I'm faced with on a commercial basis. So Rebel Cell tries to take the best bits of being a startup. We tend to leave the table tennis behind, but the other good things about being a startup, and to inoculate larger organizations with it. And even when I lecture at university for free, which is a stupid business model, but I like it, and even when I talk to the students at their end of year and they're trying to work out where to go next, and they've spent all year taking shed loads of acid and having really long hair and being really difficult, and then all of a sudden they've shorn their hair off and they've squeezed themselves into a suit and they're trying to get a job with a blue chip company. And the irony is the blue chip companies are looking for those long-haired, really unusual, really creative people who suddenly have evaporated. And so you've got to be yourself. Have an opinion, do work that matters, really important. So that's a little bit about me. I'm a massive fan of the 80s. Anybody else a big lover of the 80s? Yeah? Any band that can have 2 drummers, so they're slightly offbeat, that's disruption. Being able to walk through Soho dressed as a pirate and you're just going to work, that's disruption. And I love Adamant. And I loved growing up in the 70s and 80s because I got to dress up all the time. It was normal. What did you do? What are we doing today? Who am I today? I loved it. And there was a TV show, I don't know if anyone saw it, on Channel 4, maybe it was 10 years ago, and it was about men who, on the whole, dress so badly. Sorry, blokes, but you do, because you're uncertain. So you just go for that kind of like brown shoes, black trouser, suit, jacket, tie off, tie on if you're going somewhere posh, nice pullover. We do it all the time. We all do it. Some of you don't. You don't, sir. I like the cut of your jib. And this show was really interesting because it took men who dressed really badly, really boringly, really conservatively, and it said, the way you dress is masking your performance. It's changing who you are. Why leave that wildness behind? The things that made you weird as a kid make you brilliant today, and you're squeezing yourself into a work uniform. And maybe that's changing what you think. So it took like an average Joe and put them in stupid clothes and watched how their behavior changed. And it genuinely changed. My favourite, I'm a massive fan of T-Rex, was when he had to come to work dressed as Mark Bolan. And I just thought it was incredible. I'd dress like that every day if only I could. If only I was brave enough. And when he came dressed as Elvis, then there was a real change in how he behaved. And obviously the aim is not to come dressed in fancy dress, but to express your own style. And so dressing up every day for me is normal. That's what I would love to do. Who wouldn't want to go to work dressed as a NASA spaceman? You wouldn't want to go to work. I'm sorry, you've done it already, would be my guess. And I love these days. I love these because I told a story last year of the fact that most of my family were inventors of some kind, from Jet 1 through to building Triumph Bonnevilles. But that was Sunday lunch at my nan's house. That's who I talked to. That was normal. And we've kind of lost that. And yet, there's an opportunity. This is about the best time to be alive, I think. There's an opportunity to change it. My problem is this word here, everybody talks about it. To the point that it's become meaningless, a bit like innovation or creativity, or dare I even say it's sustainability. It's become meaningless, but it's really prescient. It is the time of disruption. But what do we mean by it? And I promise not to mention a few brands and I'm really going to try, but I've failed. And is disruption doing an HP sauce version of this?
Ketchup's on the inside. Inside, not outside.
Funny shape, this ketchup.
Not here. Tis here. Mantis. Crunchy. Potato. Ketchup. Not fiddle. Ketchup in the middle. Right up in the middle. Oh, fluffy, crispy. Potato.
Ketchup's new from Birdseye.
Reconstituted potato filled with ketchup deep fried. Now, some of you are thinking, yeah. Some of you are thinking, after a night in with the herbal relaxant, yeah. But the vast majority of us are thinking, what the fuck? Why do I want napalm squirted down my throat? And this was really bad. And I worked in the supermarket Asda for a long time, as I said earlier, and a long time ago. And I watched people talk about product innovation by bringing out another flavour of dog food. That is not innovation, unless it's mint dog food and it stops your dog breath smelling. That's innovation. I'd pay for that. And we become used to disruption in terms of let's innovate by sequel. Let's have Police Academy 6. What could possibly go wrong? And of course, sequelization isn't where innovation or disruption sits. So that isn't disruption, but that's what people mean by it sometimes. What about another app? Anybody else? Rovio, can they throw anything else at those poor bloody pigs? It's not innovation and it's not disruptive, and it maybe was. But we misuse this word. And I hate this company. I love them. They make my life so much easier. I once strayed to the dark side and bought something called Android. What was that all about? Imagine it. I take a photograph on my iPhone. I put my phone in my pocket. The photo appears on my computer. I take a photograph on my Android thing. It was a Fairphone. Good phone. And I say to the guy in the studio with me, how do I get it off? And he told me about this thing called plugging in. But this was 2014. I hadn't plugged anything in since 2010. So I did this thing called plugging in, and he said, I said, now what do I do? And he said, he Googled it, and he said, apparently you need to open it as a source drive or something. Not sauce as in ketchups, sauce as in sauce. So I opened it as a source drive, and I still couldn't see it. So he said, you've got to, there's a problem with Jelly Bean 3.0 there, and you can't do it. So you've got to send it to something called Dropbox. That's dreadful. Who designed Dropbox? It's the ugliest service known to man. Very effective, looks like shit. So I dropped it into Dropbox, and then I had to do something called import it into iPhoto. I'm out of there. I take a photo, I put my phone in my pocket, it's on iPhoto. I do something else, it's not on iPhoto. So I love them. I hate them so much, I can't tell you. Why make me a product that is like a slippery pebble? Why make me a product that has to be charged by about 11:30 in the morning? How is this ever acceptable? How can planned obsolescence be acceptable? But it kind of is. So I have this really weird relationship with them. And to me, I mean, they're great, but that isn't innovation. Let's go bigger still. Oh, it's too big. You've got to do a double tap on the home button to drop the menu so you can touch the top without dropping your phone as you're rushing down Oxford Street late for an appointment. We'll make it smaller. Yes, please. More of this. So is this disruptive? My mum uses this product. My nan would use this product. It's not disruptive. It's very good. It's not disruptive. Did that change everything? Again? How many times can they use that? The problem is, my problem with this word is, every single CEO is using this word every other sentence, and they don't know what it means. It's like the word robust. Lazy, think about another word. We have a robust response. Appropriate, strong. And this word has become the cement that holds thoughts together. And that's not good enough. We need to be smarter and think smarter. I think, it's a bit rude this, but I've checked, and according to the Sex Pistols versus The Crown in 1976, the word bollocks is not a swear word. But I think I may have dropped the F-bomb earlier anyway, so I apologise for that. But the word disruption has just become another verbal trinket in the jewellery box of business bollocks. And, you know, my favourite game is stopping managers, please, enough managers, more leaders in mid-flow, and saying, assume I'm my nan's 92, nearly 93, explain it to her. And suddenly their language becomes really simple and really accurate. And they don't talk about double-digit growth in Q4. They don't talk about the future going forward. The future going forward. When did this become normal? People use these terms in order to confuse you, befuddle you, and make you think that they're smarter than you, and they're not. Words are beautiful. More words are not more beautiful. Be really simple, be really accurate. And unfortunately, this disruption word, and I've got a book called Do Disrupt, and I'm slightly embarrassed by it. This disruption word's become too much. It's a declaration based in the fear of the moment. We've got to do something. We need to be disruptive because the landscape of business is changing, because of all the things I'm going to talk about later make you feel uncomfortable, so you rush towards disruption, but you don't mean it or know what it truly means. Often they're wedded to the status quo. And the thing about the status quo is it equates to comfortable. It's all right, just stay as we are. We'll just do another version. We'll just aim to hit another geographic market. We'll continue our slow slide into obsolescence, but it will be okay because I'll have retired before we get there. That's what happens. Because the status quo is average. I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan of the status quo. I taught my dog to sing to this last night. And I'm not a fan of average. How many of you got up this morning? and thought, today is the day that I take average to an entirely new level. Any of you? Average is my middle chuffing name. Anyone? No, didn't think so. And yet, we all have average days and we are surrounded by average people. It's not good enough to be average for a brilliant company or in a brilliant sector. Yeah, I'm into VR. Yeah, Oculus Rift this, Oculus, I don't even know what these words mean. Oculus Rift that. But I'm average at it. Not good enough. How many of you want to tell tales of averageness to your grandchildren? Oh, there was that great conference where I did that average presentation. Anyone? No. I had a lovely moment earlier. I was in the men's toilets. And there was a chap in there, he's maybe here, and it was so lovely because he'd never seen a Dyson Airblade before. And he was looking everywhere for the hand dryer. And this isn't a criticism at all. I was like, no, they're there. How many 10 years, the Dyson Airblade? He's never used a public convenience in 10 years. Something really lovely about having to explain to someone how an Airblade works. It's really sweet. I think average is a crowded market. I think it's so much easier for you to be brilliant than it is to be average. Because you don't stand out being average. You only stand out being brilliant. It's easier to be big in a small number than average in a big number. I've had enough of average. I've had enough of straight to ringtone. Oh, it's a great song. It's not a song, it's a fucking ringtone. You're not allowed to put it on there, anyone. And I know he's lovely. I know, genuinely, he is a really nice man. Average is a really long half-life. The thing is about stuff that's awful is it's so awful we stop using it. The thing is about stuff that's average is it's just enough. These tin openers, how long did we, all through the 70s and half the 80s, they're really average. No one had invented, they just weren't bad enough to invent another thing, but they weren't good enough to make you smile. How many of you have a tin opener that currently makes you smile? You're all using the wrong tin openers. So average is a really long half-life. It hangs around. And average builds on the last thing that you did. This is where average takes us. The face rasp, as I like to call it. And doing bad things better isn't the future. It can't be, can it? You all make tools, services, products even, that help people be more inventive, that help people get to market faster, that help people imagine a future which is nearer, better. But you want to use those tools to do bad things, to make more products, to sell more things, more shit to people that can't afford it and didn't want it in the first place, but they've been told they do. That economy is dead. You can't grow a business that hurts people, damages the environment and destroys its supply chain. But we're surrounded by them. You can't be part of the problem. You have to be part of the solution. Disruption isn't about incremental change. It isn't about doing things less badly, clumsy. It's got to be about not doing harm. This morning, just after you worked out that you were going to be the most average person here today, how many of you thought, today's the day I'm going to take bastardry to an entirely new level? I'm going to drop the C-bomb now. How many of you thought, I am going to be like Clarkson? And I know, he's lovely. I know he kisses his children goodnight. He tells them made-up stories of dragons in faraway lands. He eats organic vegetables, he shops locally, and he drives an electric vehicle. I know he really is like that. He just pretends. But the pretense is really destructive because it shores up the prejudices of a section of the population who are so out of tune with now. That's why he's dangerous. And I'm with Stuart Lee. You've all seen that Stuart Lee sketch about Top Gear? No? Yes? Where he says it's not Clarkson that's the problem. It's Richard the Hamster Hammond. Go on, be nasty. And he's right. It's really worth watching if you get the chance. And I don't think he is a bad man. Misguided, possibly. Marginally racist, possibly slightly misogynist. I wouldn't like to comment. However, I don't think he's a bad man. I don't think anyone gets up and wants to do harm. And yet, how many of you came across a bastard yesterday? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Lots of us came across bastards yesterday. Because people seem to leave civility and purpose at the door when they go to work. And that's not right, is it? I was a really big bastard, you tell your grandchildren in 30 years' time. I was the biggest bastard that ever did live. Oh, good on you, Grandad, Grandma. No, that's not the conversation that you're going to have, is it? Oh, my clicker's stopped working. So, no one starts off with a purpose of bad. We all start off with a purpose of good. You all left home this morning wanting to have a good time and do good things, as you do every single day. And yet sometimes it just doesn't kind of work out. And it's really important to have your guiding star, your compass, because it's so easy to be distracted by the things that don't matter. I run something called the Do Lectures in my spare time, which takes up almost all my time. And the Do Lectures is really beautiful because it's founded on the basis that you're shown 2 films when you die, or as you're dying, even worse. The first film is all the things you've achieved, or the smiles that you've conjured on the lips of strangers, not as dark as it seems, or the goosebumps that you've raised on people's arms, and all of the good things that you've done. And that is a beautiful film. But the second film is all of the good things that you could have done, all of the people that you could have made smile, all of the amazing achievements that you could have reached, if only you hadn't played so damn small. If only you'd used all of your talents, if only you'd got up when you fell down. And here's the thing, those conversations at the end of your life will not involve selling more units in Q1 of 2016. They won't. They don't matter. Doing good things matters. And it's so easy to let go of that purpose. It's so easy to have something that's really pure, and then you realize that it's gone. And I love Banksy. It's not him, it's not her, it's a collective. I would bet money on it. I love Banksy for 2 reasons. Number 1, all their images are royalty-free. I don't need permission to show it you. Result. Number 2, they always get it right. If you buy this T-shirt off Camden Market, that's how it's framed. This piece of artwork is all about this. It's all about there always being hope. And you may have spent 30, 40 years climbing your mountain, only to get to the top and realize that you've climbed the wrong mountain. It's okay. You can go back down again, and you can climb another mountain. There's always hope. There's always time to change. And we start straight out of school, college, university, the pub. I'm not really bothered where you get your education. Certainly changing where you get your education. With really high hopes. And those move tantalizingly out of reach until there's this gap. And I like to call this the Grand Designs conundrum. You all know Grand Designs. You all know Kevin. He's brilliant, ever so slightly snooty. Brilliantly ever so slightly snooty. And I don't know whether you saw this one. I can't remember. There was a magnate of industry. I can't remember who it was. But Kevin is talking to this geezer about why this geezer, in his retirement, is building an eco-house. And this guy used to be the chief executive of some business. I do remember. I'm just not going to say it on live broadcast telly box. And Kevin sat there. You know how he does. Like this, saying, Captain of Industry, why are you building an eco-house? Captain of Industry stood over here. He says, well, Kevin, the thing is I've steered the good ship British industry through choppy waters, I've done some things that I'm not massively proud of, and I think it's time I did some good by building an eco house. Kevin, back over here again, ever so slightly snooty, but very good, says, yes, that's interesting, but maybe if you hadn't sold loads of shit to people that didn't need it, didn't want it, and couldn't afford it, you wouldn't need to build an eco house. Now, the thing is, Kevin never said that, but he thought it. And the thing is, you're all sat at home thinking exactly the same thing. It's like offsetting, life offsetting. I'm going to be really average at doing bad things, and then when I retire, I'll do something good. It's like carbon offsetting. I'm going to pump loads of shit into the atmosphere, raise temperature slightly, possibly, and I'm going to offset it by spending money by planting trees. It's like the RSPCA offset, and you all know the thing, don't you? You've all got pets. You come home, you've had a bad day, you kick your cat in the head, boosh. And then you ring the RSPCA, you say, I'd like to make a donation, please, £10 or £20, please. It's not good enough to put it right afterwards, is it? That's the thing, RSPCA offsetting. I just invented it there and then. So disruption is really difficult because we all say it, and lots of middle managers think they're disruptive, and if they're not, then they're going to get sacked. Not everyone's disruptive. Not every idea is disruptive. And when I talk about disruption, I don't mean I nearly didn't say it and I nearly got it in. I don't mean starting something that actually truly isn't disruptive, but we perceive it to be. I don't mean starting your own business. I don't mean coming up with mint dog food or RSPCA offsetting. Don't mean that. It can be as simple as being the best you. About lifting yourself from average into brilliant. It can be as simple as just doing the right thing. It can be as simple as coming up with new products that people really want. It's not sufficient to do things better. We need to do better things. The time that we live in is so exciting and so stressful. I talked last year, 3 billion more middle class in the world by 2030. That is a huge market that isn't us. Who's going to make things for us? Who's going to make products that we will buy? Because the Chinese will make products for other people. They are cunningly inventive, hungry for change. We are a small market. We're less important than we used to be. So we've got to start doing things ourselves. We have to start manufacturing. And it's really hard because costs are going to rise. But here's the thing about costs rising. I buy expensive jeans. I buy them from a friend of mine, so I get a discount, in Wales. And they're £150 a pair, and that's ridiculously expensive. Those jeans are repaired free for life. That's ridiculously cheap. Now, if I have no money, if I am completely broke, and I have to buy new jeans, I cannot just go and buy them in the shop. I have no money. I have to use something called a club book, as my nan says. I have to use one of the many catalogue companies. And I go and buy a pair of Levi 501s off the web directly. It's about £35 to £40 if you shop around. If I go to a club book, it's about £89 for a pair. So I'm already paying double. I have no money, remember, but this is the only way I can buy. So I have no money, and I buy it through the club book. And I think £89 is a lot of cash, but actually it's only £2 a month spread over 4 years, or whatever it works out at. And that's a cheap way of buying expensive. It's an expensive way of buying expensive, because what's the interest rate? 39%. So you take that £89 and you spread it over 4 years and you pay 39%, and you might as well have done something like go to Wales and buy a pair of jeans handmade by people who care, repaired free for life. The only thing that's stopping you doing it is the fact that it's expensive. The only reason why you should do it is the fact that it's cheap. We just need to change the way we buy. There needs to be a leasing or a stage payment. We're smart enough, and these people who have no money are already doing that. They're already doing it. The shift has hit the fan. Change is happening all around us. And it's really scary, and it's the most exciting thing ever. I don't know how many have read Paul Mason's book, about the end of capitalism 1.0. Hands up if you've read his book. No. Hands up if you've, thank you. Hands up if you've read his article in The Guardian. Thank you. That's probably good enough. It's quite a long book, and he gets most of it over in a really handily sized article. That's what newspapers are for. It's really interesting. I'm old, I'm 47. I thought that capitalism would be defeated. I don't think that's the right word, because I don't think it's a bad thing. I thought capitalism would end because socialism would rise. No, socialism didn't beat capitalism. The information age beat capitalism. The democratization of manufacturing, of innovation, of creativity, the closing of the gap between the amateur and the professional, the changing in the way we value raw materials and who owns them, that's what's changed capitalism, and it won't ever be defeated. But capitalism 2.0 will look so different from the capitalism we've already had. I don't know what it'll look like. Don't know what your role is in it. Some of you are already there. I know you are. Some of you are brilliant companies who are already shifted towards software as a service, towards non-productization. Some of you have already made that leap, and that's brilliant. But you've just got to look around at the rise of the P2P economy. It's really talked up, but it's going to change from 30 billion a year to 335 billion a year in the next 15 years. We know that. That is important. And most of that doesn't go through the taxman's hands. That is scary. How do we do that? How do we do a P2P service? I don't know what it looks like. The advent of the circular economy, valuing the materials for the molecules that they've got. You probably saw Apple's recent advert for their computer Liam. At last, they've done something. It's not the right solution, but they've done something. At the end of a product's life, when you finish with this clicker, you've got the periodic table in your hands, and you let it drip through your fingers. Because we recycle that because we have to, not because the neodymium in there, not because of the elements that are in there, the coltan that we need. We have to close the loop on the materials that we use. We have to use less materials. We have to work out how we make more money by selling less stuff, because there's going to be less stuff to sell. The oil price is a bit of a problem at the moment, because that means that the recovery of materials, plastics particularly, isn't cost effective. There's still the same amount of oil in the ground that there was 5 years ago. But the way we hedge and the way we invest in oil is really complex. This isn't sense. This is about global economics. And trust me, that is not sense. But the way that we use the skills that we've got is changing rapidly. Do you still recruit people with degrees? Have you seen a decline in the interest in recruiting people with degrees? Do you want someone saddled with between £45,000 and £75,000 worth of debt who's been drinking for 4 years? At least drinking for 4 years? Possibly. For some jobs, that's absolutely essential. Or do you want someone that started 3 businesses and failed 2 of them? Hopefully not failed any of them. The world's changing. I'm not saying one of those things is right and one's wrong, and I'm not saying that you can't start a business while you're at university. I hope you can. But the world's changing, and I don't know what it's going to look like, and I don't know how you're going to do it. As I said earlier, disrupt is used by everybody to mean everything, and it doesn't. You need to be really clear what you want to disrupt. More importantly, you need to be really clear why. You need to understand your why as a business. Someone talked about it earlier. It was a really good presentation, and I'm slightly embarrassed I can't remember their name. But they talked about working out what their why is, and it was so true. Why do you do what you do? Not to make money. That's a side effect. Be brilliant at what you do, and the money will chase you. The word disrupt, I'd argue it's become meaningless. It's never what you say. It's always what you do that matters. What are you doing? How are you doing it? And I run disruption workshops, and I take people on disruption journeys, and it's all verbiage. I help them do things better. And I have some really simple tips. Keep your radar on. Paul Smith does this best. When Paul Smith goes to London, he doesn't wear earphones. He doesn't get cabs. He walks. And he absorbs all the things around him. His radar is on all the time. Because the earphone bubble is so comfortable. I've just bought a pair of Bose SoundLink for a journey to Australia. Wireless earphones that put me in this little bubble. It's like taking narcotics. Can't quite feel the world. Put my sunglasses on, I can't quite see the world. I'm in my bubble, safe. Take them off. Go and smell the world. Look, see what it looks like. See what people are doing. Talk to people who aren't like you. We're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Change the people. You want a different viewpoint on a product? Change who you talk to. Not that the people you're with at the moment are bad, not at all, but they're probably like you. Go and find people who aren't like you. Set yourself a gnarly challenge, really audacious challenge. How do we make £5 billion more profit and make people happier? Set that, be audacious with it. Run ideas competitions. God, it's simple. Suggestion boxes we used to. I went to a company about 3 months ago, and they've got a suggestions box on the wall. And I said to a couple of the people who work for the company, do you put ideas in the suggestions box? Nah, we did about a year ago. Never heard anything. So I then talked to the management, or as I like to call them, the leaders, and said, any good ideas in the suggestions box? I don't know, we don't open it. Right, okay, there's a problem here. There's probably chock-a block full of great ideas, and if it isn't now, it would be if at least you opened it and looked like you cared. So run competitions ideas. Give people the time and the permission to innovate. Allow it. Side projects are awesome. Allow side projects. It's really hard. You think you've got to make more money by doing what you're doing further, faster, quicker, nicer. Play. Give them 20% time off. That feels bad. How do you control that? Because management is often about control. It's so wrong. Let people play. See what happens. I can't remember the figure. I think it's something like Google make 50% of their profits from their 20% time. I can't remember, but I think it's something like that. And that's no accident. It's important. Get to minimum lovable product fast. Don't worry about minimum viable product. Get to something people love fast. Test, move on. I use a culture of sprint. I love sprinting. I used to sprint over the road from Coventry Godiva Harriers, just over the main road there. And I loved it. It was my favourite thing, and it still is. I'm 47, and my favourite thing are playing out on bikes and sprinting. When I was 7, my favourite things were playing out on bikes and sprinting. Nothing changes. Everything changes. But don't try too hard. You can't enforce creativity. This is me with a big face, like the moon. And this is my friend Liz Pugh. Liz Pugh was the same age as me and way smaller. I had all the kit, the spikes, and the Adidas. Liz Pugh's running in a velour tracksuit with a check shirt. It took me 3 years to beat her. She was brilliant. She wasn't even trying. Look at her face. I'm trying way too hard. And when it comes to disruption, we can try way too hard. So relax, find your pace, go for a run, cycle. Who has their best ideas in front of their computer? No one said that ever. No one ever said that. Find where you find your best ideas and sit in it. Play, use some side projects, talk to people you don't normally talk to. Let yourself be creative because we are all creative. Don't try too hard. Thank you. It's a good night from me. And it's a good night from him. Cheers.
Thanks very much, Mark.